you strike a balance, or has the game been lost? This is going to be a brief discussion about security in cyberspace and one's personal freedoms. The Latin phrase alia iacta est, pardon for my Latin mangling there, is easily translated to, via some helpful software, the die has been cast. What that means is the game is already afoot, if you're into Inspector Holmes, or that this process has been going on for quite some time, and now we're going to review it. Good day, my name is Edmund Richard. I am part of Group 1 for the class MSDF 630-A01 at the University of Cumberland. I would like to bring your attention to the statement on the slide, which basically states, the man who would choose security over freedom deserves neither. Basically a warning from our forefathers that security is not something you trade freedom for. As we go through these slides, we will see this more clearly. This is my friend, Mr. Laser Pointer. Say hello. Hello, I'm a laser pointer. Sorry for bad sense of humor, but he will be useful as we go through certain items. Okay, our problem. As you can see from this graphic right here with lots of text, all looking scary, probably in a 5 o'clock news somewhere with someone talking about a lost dog, and then a puppy which is probably mangled its owner. In any case, what is our problem here with cybersecurity? Well, as you see, step 1, governments love to gather data, usually under the guise of security, which means, hey, we know what's best for you, we're going to monitor everything, and if you are doing no wrong, why should you worry? Well, we really should worry. Schools, on the other hand, have been told to stop censoring LGBTQ sites and other learning material which is not part of the curricula. As education moves online, especially now in the time of COVID pandemic, we have students accessing all sorts of material, and when they go through a educational systems filter, sometimes they cannot get access to everything. The ACLU has had to get involved in this case to allow students who are interested in material outside of the curriculum to get access to it. It has been a fine line because we have COPPA and various other laws to protect children, but when do we start censoring versus educating? The big one that's made the news is intervention in presidential elections. Part of the research I have done, apparently Mr. Vladimir Putin, the president of Russia, suffered from some U.S. interference during his election, so turnabout is fair play apparently. And that continued in the American presidential election of 2016, and it is still rumored to be going on today. Currently, there is no firm data on exactly who is doing what because of the government's ability to deny on both sides. Everyone is denying who started it and who's doing what. Then down here is the wonderful new device from Amazon. The people who supply those boxes we get all of our goods from now, especially during the time of pandemic. They introduce a new device, which I'll not name. I do not need to give them free publicity. That is supposed to be a health monitor, but it also has the additional feature of being able to listen to the tone of your voice. It will therefore sense an angry or aggravated tone and tell you to calm down. While this is under the guise of promoting health, for it to listen to your tone, that means it needs to be taught of what is anger or what is happy and what is laughter. If you think that device knows that difference and is not communicating your speech and its tone to Amazon and others, you're sadly mistaken. So, how much is your health worth, and how much privacy are you going to give away? As you can see here, we have the big word of the day, big data. Per many textbooks, it has the 4 V's, which means veracity, variety, velocity, and volume. In simple terms, basically, big data is large amounts of data and metadata which are gathered in real time from other transactions and data gathering events. These data items, consider them like little puzzle pieces, are thrown together in a giant pool. Then people will sift through them. They like calling them data scientists. I have other names for them, but we'll stick with data scientists. They will then filter and resell your information to various other vendors. Now, of course, you never really agreed to that, but if you do look at the disclaimer on almost any website, you will soon see how they have covered this avenue. For now, many countries do have data privacy laws. The United States really does not. I do understand that the state of California does have some form of data privacy, but with the state of social media, I am really waiting for someone to crack down. Now, the second item, COPPA, is supposed to be protecting children from engaging in activities they should not. In other words, a child cannot enter into a legally binding agreement. Therefore, a lot of games and other such activities require that a user enter a legally binding agreement which accepts the cost for various add-ons or skins or whatever it may be for the moment. But when you look at these games, who are they designed for? They're not only designed for the bored adults, but also for children. Who does not think that children will lie about their age to get to the game? Therefore, they're circumventing COPPA, their own protection, but who is really stopping them? Sadly, no one. As I stated before, social media are citizens across the world simply dumping out their feelings, emotions, reactions, videos, pictures, you name it, it's out there. Sadly, once you make it public, anyone can take it. You have no rights to your data. You're giving it to a private company. It does not follow the Constitution. It does not follow what people believe is privacy. It is simply a private entity. This is why Facebook has been brought to the government many sessions and looked starstruck or whatnot, but nothing has been done. Sadly, the U.S. government, while chastising Facebook with one hand, is also applauding them for allowing the U.S. government to mine their data to find suspects, threat actors, you name it, they'll put a name to it, they'll mine the data and look for people when they have to. So, is the government your best friend? Is the government the best manager for your data? As it stands now, we don't know, and not many people sadly care. Now, once again, not to beat big data to a pulp, but let's look at these 4 points. Global interconnectivity. The word here, global, should scare everyone. You must realize, regardless where you are in the United States, if you're writing that love letter, that thank you, that hate mail, or whatnot, to your friend who is maybe the state next to you, if you believe that once you click send, that email or whatever simply goes from your state to the next state with nothing in between, you're sadly mistaken. Because Google is a global company, and I'm simply using them as an example, almost all companies do this, depending on the load and the nature of caching servers and various other little technological gizmos, we'll just call them that because it gets boring to describe them, your email will bounce around the world before it gets to your intended recipient. Guess what? Once it leaves the boundaries of the United States, it is fair game to be captured, sifted through, cataloged, and whatnot. So remember, every time you transmit something, Even though you think it's within the boundaries of the US, you do not control the internet. No one really does. It has a lot of checks and balances depending on load, who's sending at what time of day. Probably if Tommy in the back room is taking a rubber chicken and fed it properly, who knows at this point? It is so complex and so difficult to guarantee a straight path for data that it may be captured. And who knows what that says about you. Now in China, they have something called the Great Firewall. This is a process to try to control information coming into and out of the country. This Great Firewall has been circumvented. They're constantly changing it, and it will simply tell citizens what you can see and what you cannot see. While we do not have this in this country, various other countries do have some sort of a similar setup. And as China is being the leader in this, we soon shall see who will repeat their form of censorship and data flow control. Now here in the United States, I know the glorious picture of a thumb with the American flag is nice, but there's a balance between security and freedom. Now where I got this from was from a discussion in 2009. At the time of me recording this, it is 2020. We still do not have hard and fast rules on when data is to be secured, who secures it, who decides what is important, who does not get included in that discussion. So even though we do not have a great firewall, we do have a great vacuum. And that vacuum is sucking up every piece of data it can and building profiles, just in the name of security. Once again, end users, people use cell phones, video game systems, computers, Internet of Things devices. All of these things are transmitting data at all times. No one is really fully aware of what's being sent where, who's listening to it, who's sorting it, and who's cataloging it. Because so much has changed, no one has taken this to task. This is where individual privacy has been kicked to the curb and possibly run over by the garbage man because no one cares. And the debates rage in social media and in the newspapers all the time. When it comes to the word security, if you go to a corporation, they may have strict rules or they may not. At this point, everyone is fearful on who has what on whom and who's going to use it. Is security a panacea? Do we say security allows us to do this? I guess we do. Now I know for many fellow students and other people I've met in my life, they love the walled garden. Now while this is a beautiful little garden here, yes, once again, Mr. Laser Pointer is back in action. This is to represent the large fruit company. As you can see, this is part of their logo. That is Apple Incorporated. Apple Incorporated has still, to this day, tried to control every facet of its products and the data. They have tried to sell a bill of goods to consumers that there's privacy, no one is selling their data, no one is mining it. Yet, lo and behold, the TikTok application, which is now in the news once again because now the United States government is going to be banning its download and possibly its connectivity, was found to be gathering data on the sly. Sadly, many people think, well, that is just an issue because TikTok's creators are Chinese, so the Chinese are spying on us and everything else that goes along with it. But developers across the world on all platforms have been using development tools which, under the guise of telemetry, health of the device, there's a million different terms, but all of these devices seem to have software which can record screenshots without the user knowing, can copy contents of the clipboard, transmit GPS location data, search and transmit files, and at no point does the user explicitly know this is happening. When you install that game or when you buy that phone, if you read the fine print, you will see the word telemetry in there many times. Sadly, most people don't know that telemetry can also include many other things. So this is like a realtor going by your house and taking a picture. Most people say that's fine. Someone can take a picture of my house. The problem is electronic telemetry takes a picture of your house, busts down your door, goes through your clothing, your private matters, bundles it up and sends it out, and never asks you permission. Do we notice this? Most people do not. This is an issue. Once again, under the guise of reliability and possibly security, we're giving away everything. For what? A question which is very difficult to answer. Again, I've repeated this many times. Security above all. What are we securing, and whom are we securing it from? Your pictures of last summer's vacation? Is that something to be secured? It has value to you. But who else wants to see that picture? Who else wants to know where you were last summer? Who you were with? Where did you go? All of those things we don't think of. There's a term in advertising, it's called a long tail, which means you go after any piece of information you can, and like a little snake, you're biting up the tail, finding one piece of information leads to another, to another, to another. A perfect example of this is to simply go to Amazon, whether you're a Prime customer or not, look up something innocuous. It could be socks, shoes, a baseball bat. Go to your Facebook, TikTok, whatever displays ads, and lo and behold, you'll see ads from Amazon for whatever you search for. But those follow you everywhere because Amazon, Facebook, and everyone else tracks where you've been through the use of cookies and other technologies to build a profile on you so they can sell you things. That information is also valuable because it was stated that the 9/11 terrorists had a larger data profile or data footprint in advertisers than the US government had. Think about that. When did that happen? Now it's 2020. You don't think that so many other entities know more about you than they've ever asked you permission for? So once again, what are we securing? It's a very long paragraph right here. It's talking about propaganda. Propaganda is not just something used in war. It is not just something you use to convince an enemy to give up without firing a shot. Propaganda is used by everyone from politicians to your neighbor down the street to get you to think, feel, or change your mind on something. The glorious example of what color the dress was. Do you think people really cared about the color of a dress? Or were they gathering data on where you went to see what color it really was? Consider Locard's principle, his theory. When two or more objects interact with each other, both of them leave imprints on each other. Think about a car accident. A white car hits a red car, you're going to have paint transfer. You enter a room, you're going to leave DNA. You're going to take away stuff from a room. You know, your shoes are going to pick up carpet fibers, they're going to pick up schmutz, they're going to pick up something. Locard's principle simply states, when two objects interact, they exchange information. They exchange something. This all comes from propaganda because as you were looking for the color of the dress, you were swearing that it's blue, or it's gold, or it's silver, or whatever color you thought it was. You were searching and looking, and every time you went from one place to another, you were building up a trail of breadcrumbs for someone to pick up. They would say they debated this on Facebook. They asked their friends via IM. They went to look at Amazon if that dress was somewhere so they could see if there was a color choice. They went to People magazine because famous stars were weighing in on this. They went to our local newspaper. They started a comment somewhere. Every one of those interactions leaves a trace. For the people who think, well, I use a VPN, I'm always covering my tracks. No, you do not. You have a connection to a greater world. A VPN simply tries to state, hey, my connection, instead of going from point A to point B, is you can go from my house, point A, to point X. Then point X is going to direct you to point B. So someone at point B is going to try to find me. They're going to stop at X. No, they're not. It's been widely known that VPNs are one of the first things government agencies look for, because the assumption is encrypted communication probably means something is trying to be protected. We understand businesses try to protect their information, but so do criminals use that. Once again, information is always being built. Information can be used as propaganda. Propaganda is a form of security. It's the war for the mind. They want you to give them information. In exchange, they're going to give you a view they want you to consider and lean towards. If you don't think that works, look at the elections. Look at countries across the world which are fighting, having genocidal acts, because some small group states one thing, other people join in. Before you know it, it is a mob, and things happen. We need to only look in a newspaper to realize people are gathering data, people are after the mind share of the world, and people want to guide others. This is why I put the word, the war of the mind. Seems like a sidebar, it is not. We must be aware that our privacy is nearly non-existent. Someone or somebody's want your information. They want to know where you've been, they want to know where you're going, and they want to help guide you there, either to sell you something, to watch what you're doing, or any number of things. You must understand. This book, which this quote is taken from, is from 1996. It is for an old theory. The theory still works. We must be cognizant of what the world is doing, for we are interacting with it, and it is interacting with us. Sadly, most people consider war tanks, planes, missiles, bombs, flamethrowers, you name it. They're thinking that's what war is. Security and privacy is another war. Who authorized the U.S. government to start collecting data? Most people are not aware of the Patriot Act. Most people are not aware of the fact that president after president have renewed it. They've expanded it. Are you truly calling Aunt Mabel? The government wants to know, because maybe Aunt Mabel's a code name for a terrorist. They don't know. They don't trust you. They want to know. I know many people are going to say, take off the tinfoil hat. No. Look at Project Einstein. It's an old data collection technique. Governments across the world have been trying to get an insight into other countries since the beginning of time. Now with social media and everything else, they don't need to send a spy anywhere. They simply need to look at social media. They can simply say, person X works for company Y, this is who else they interact with, this is who you like to buy, these are their dislikes, these are their likes. That's free information gathering. Governments love that. Do they use it against their own people? Of course. Look what China's doing. They have a social currency. You do so many minor infractions, your social currency goes down, which means you may not be able to go places. If you do enough of them, you may be incarcerated and re-educated. Or the best one, shown in a special on our PBS station here, Public Broadcasting System. If you jaywalked, Immediately on the street, there was a picture of your face, seeing you jaywalk. Public humiliation. Wonderful. So remember, next time you drop that gum, maybe there's a camera somewhere watching you. Maybe someone is saying, boy, oh boy, that person is dropping gum one day. The next day they can be blowing up a school. Sounds crazy? No. People don't know how to handle this influx of data. And the worst thing is, you're thinking, well, this is government work. No. Facebook is not the government. Facebook is a private company. TikTok is a private company. Snapchat, Google, Apple. You name the company, they all have data retention plans. If you dig through their About Us page, you'll see what they do with that data. Now you're noticing more and more. You're being asked to accept cookies. You really don't know what is in them. You're being told if you're in the European Union, you have certain rights. But who knows about those rights? Who's telling you, hey, when you go here, you're losing this, you're gaining this? Not available. Where's your privacy? And who says that all of this data gathering is increasing security? So in summary, I understand it's been over 26 minutes. I am sorry. A lot to say, and PowerPoint doesn't allow me to say it all. So, the world has changed, and people have been slow to realize the dangers. I know someone's going to say that doesn't make sense. No. The world has changed. It's not just the fact now you can have an electric car. It's not the fact that you can simply use Skype to call someone across the world. No, the change is that we have a whole generation of children who now believe privacy is something not important. To them, it's great to share with their friends everything. But what else are they sharing? Did you tell your child, share this but not this? Hey, while walking around their house, please do not videotape all of this. I know I dated myself. Videotape. Record digital images, where they're going, who they're with. I mean, the interactions of electronic devices with each other is shockingly scary. Yet most people don't realize, hey, when you make that Skype call, when you go here, you do that. Not only are you requesting information you want, but a lot of your information is going with it. A lot of information can be picked back off. A lot of information is gathered, and on and on. Where's the security in your data? No one's going to tell you. People are going to say, well, we have anti-malware, we have this, we have that. Look at those products, look what they do. You need to educate yourself. Governments, private industry, former allies, and new enemies, like I've stated, have gained more from social media and our readily acceptance of Internet of Things devices, personal fitness trackers, you name it. Someone's gathering data on it, and it's out there. One of the scarier things is, look at the connectivity in your car. Do you think everything you say in your car is just being kept to you? How is OnStar, some other device, not listening at all times, waiting for that keyword? Do you think it just transmits that information to nowhere? Or someone listening to it? Both Apple and Google have admitted, along with Amazon, to train their devices to work properly, humans have to interpret them and train the electronics to recognize things. So what you're saying is being listened to by any number of contractors and employees. Oops. Social media, propaganda's best tool. People react all the time to it. Since the time of the pandemic, we're all loving sharing every little thought, how we wish we can go here or there, how we're going to fight with our neighbor or supposed best friends or family over one political view over another. Meanwhile, we're being bombarded by ads and television on our devices, and we're slowly being steered one way or another. We're creating little bubbles. We're not understanding how our little bubble goes to a bigger bubble of data. Bubbles of data. Sounds wonderful, not really. this last little amount, quote right here. The interference by the U.S. government, as is alleged by the Soviet government in their elections, has resulted in the Soviet government interfering with our government's elections. You can deny it as much as you want. Study after study, data has been done at recreations. People know you are being manipulated, but people do not want to believe that. They simply want to find out what color that blasted dress was. They want to know if their feelings at the moment for a certain candidate's right or wrong. They want to know if COVID is real, or is it a myth or a weapon of mass destruction, or whatever they think. You need to realize where you're getting your information is going to steer you somewhere. Who is steering that information? And how secure is your information? Because if you want to talk about security faux pas, we have Equifax. And my, the information Equifax let loose is more than just your credit score. It's more than your address. It's more than your name. It is the names of all your family, birth and death records, educational records. All of that was being kept by a credit card company. I'm sorry, not a credit card company. A credit company, which determined whether or not you got a car, a house, student loan, etc. Now think about that. Did they really need to go that far into your life? But they did. But did that make the big news? Who is rallying to find out where that information went? Use Google, use DuckDuckGo, use what you wish. You'll find a whole hidden world where both supposed allies, friends, governments, and companies have been steering you. Thank you for listening. This is Edwin Richard, signing off.